Hello, Degrassi fans, and welcome to the Degrassi Kid Patreon, where we take you even deeper into the behind the scenes of Degrassi. This week, we're headed back to July of 1992, which is interesting because that is 6 months after the finale of Degrassi High. Their summer movie, Degrassi School's Out, aired in February of 1992 as a way to wrap up the Degrassi series. And so, obviously, we thought the Degrassi Kids would be done for good. But just because they stopped creating brand new episodes doesn't mean the world of Degrassi stopped too. The actors went on to pursue their dreams outside of the show, and some of them even began working on their own production projects. Linda Schuyler and Kit Hood still owned their production company called Playing with Time, and they were still creating film projects. And the Degrassi crew stayed in touch through a monthly newsletter, which highlighted all of their achievements on and off the show. Today, we're going to be reading one of those newsletters and taking a look at what Degrassi life was like back in July of 1992, imagining how fun it would be if we were official Degrassi kids and got these newsletters in the mail ourselves. This 1992 newsletter opens with a message that Linda and Kit have painted the Playing with Time building. Their production office, which appeared on my Degrassi birthday tour, by the way, was completely repainted into this mishmash of bright and beautiful colors that made it stand out from a mile away. Linda and Kit said that they were inspired by the Painted Ladies in San Francisco, which are homes that are beautifully colored. They had recently gone on a trip together and thought the site was just so beautiful to see, so they wanted to make the same impact with their home office on Queen Street in Toronto. Linda said, "We fell in love with the colorful homes that make that California city so famous," encouraging the Degrassi kids to drop by and see it for yourself. And you know that if I got this newsletter in the mail, I would 100% run over and marvel at how beautiful the production office is. I am sure of it. Now, one of my favorite stories to come out of this newsletter is an update about Anais Granofsky, who played Lucy on Degrassi. At the time, Linda and Kit started a project called the Playing with Time Foundation, which offered grants and scholarships for students in need. They'd help fund your educational degree, your creative art projects, or just help you out with different things that you had on the go. Linda talked about this in one of our interviews together, where she told me about a film project that she funded for Neil Hope about his father's alcohol addiction. In this newsletter, Linda and Kit call for applications for their 3rd annual scholarship, noting that in the year before, they assisted 7 Degrassi cast members with their education, doling out over $9,000 in educational grants for the cast. But that's not all. Linda and Kit use this newsletter to remind you that they help fund other projects too, noting that they're supporting Anais Granofsky's first 16mm film titled Eve's Gone Nuts. And I have to say, it always hits a certain soft spot in your little fangirl heart when someone on Degrassi is so true to the character that they play in real life. We'll remember, of course, that Lucy on Degrassi is an aspiring filmmaker and creates her first film project called It Creeps, which is one of my all-time favorite Degrassi High episodes ever. And this was something that Anais was interested in real life, so they incorporated it into her character, Lucy. And one of my favorite behind-the-scenes facts, just to derail for a second, is that Linda Schuyler always says that Lucy is the character that she relates to the most from Degrassi, which is so cool. But after Degrassi, Anais Granofsky continued on working in the world of film and television and began writing, producing, and directing her own projects. And now here we are, way back in 1992, with the Degrassi team investing in her first project. That is so cool. They go on to note that Anais' project is being sound edited by John Nebresny, who actually worked as a production assistant on Degrassi. A post-production assistant on Degrassi. And then they go on to thank all the Degrassians who stepped up to help Anais with her very first project, which is so cute. This article ends with everyone wishing Anais good luck on her upcoming stint at NYU, where she planned to study film and television. And she did! She graduated in 1996 with her film degree from NYU. Way to go, Anais! Next, we see a happy photo of Linda Schuyler and Kit Hood as they hold up their not one, but 2 Prix Jean-Louis Awards for Degrassi. This prestigious recognition is part of a children awards program held in Munich, Germany. Their goal is to improve children's television worldwide and start global conversations about kids. Degrassi won their first award in 1986 for a Kids of Degrassi Street episode called Griff Makes a Date, which deals with the subject of mentally disabled children. And in 1992 with the episode Bad Blood, which follows Dwayne as he contracts HIV after having unprotected sex. Linda noted that winning the award was a huge surprise because she didn't think someone could ever win it twice. In fact, Degrassi was the only TV show who ever won it twice. Linda reacted to this by saying, "Having won the award in the past, I didn't think we would win again. The award was a bonus, though the real prize was exchanging ideas with like-minded people from around the world. I think the people back at Playing with Time were as shocked as I was when I called them to tell them we actually won." My favorite part of this newsletter is that it specifically makes a point to let us know that Linda celebrated with beer in Munich, Germany, but popped champagne corks back at the Playing with Time offices in Toronto. I loved that. On the next page, we get an update about the Kids Help Phone, Degrassi Talks, and the future of the Degrassi franchise in 2001. First, they note that the series Degrassi Talks helped raise money for the Kids Help Phone through their TV series and book publications. If you don't know, Degrassi Talks is a series they did in 1992 after the School's Out movie, where the actors from the show traveled all across Canada and visited real kids at real schools to talk about the real issues that they tackle on Degrassi. This time, the Degrassi kids were the one behind the camera, holding the microphones and recording their teenage subjects. When the series premiered in 1992, they hosted a tour all across Canada, where they visited malls and schools and met with teenagers to promote their new series. They covered 6 topics on the show, each one hosted by someone who was on Degrassi. Spike's actress covered sex, of course. Wheels covered alcohol. Kathleen covered abuse. Pat covered depression. Yick talked on drugs. And Caitlin on sexuality. The show brought in over 1 million viewers per week, which was absolutely huge. Linda and her team noted that Newfoundland was a standout visit because of their massive turnout and huge fan reaction. It was the first time Degrassi had ever made its way to the province for an official event, and everyone went crazy, they said. Neil Hope, who played Wheels on Degrassi, and Stacey Mistician, who played Caitlin, visited the Avalon Mall in Newfoundland and met over 2,000 Degrassi fans. Afterwards, Health and Welfare Canada actually did a study on the impact of Degrassi Talks, where it was reported that 97% of the teens who were interviewed said it was important and useful information that could help them in the future. That is huge. But it wasn't just the show that was important to teenagers, they said. A fan named Miriam told them that, "I finished watching the abuse episode of Degrassi Talks and then had a long, hard cry," she said. "I'm 48 years old. I was sexually assaulted as a young child and repressed the memory until a few years ago. Now I'm in therapy and working on recovery." Oh, stories like this are the reason that I love Degrassi, because it has just such a wide impact all over the world for all these kinds of issues. During the tour, the Degrassi kids held an unofficial fundraiser where they'd collect nickels, dimes, and loonies for the Kids Help Phone. In total, they raised $580, which was then matched by Linda and Kit and the Playing with Time Foundation. So at the annual general meeting for Kids Help Phone, they were able to come with a check for $1,160, and it was presented by Amanda Steptoe and Neil Hope, or Spike and Wheels on Degrassi. And what is so cute about the story of this newsletter is that they were so surprised that they were there to also accept an award from the Kids Help Phone, and it was called the Kids Help Phone Appreciation Award, and it was given to Playing with Time for all of their hard work in promoting the Help Phone. How freaking cute is that? And it was a partnership that continued on even well into Degrassi The Next Generation, which is amazing. Linda and Kit then updated their Degrassi kids about the Talks program and how it was one of the most successful educational videos that was being distributed around schools everywhere. Even internationally, in both Denmark and Botswana, they were eager to buy the film rights to Degrassi Talks and show it to their own students, which is so cool. I can't imagine getting that newsletter and knowing that your face is going to be that far around the world to help kids. That's so cool. When it came to the actual Degrassi series itself, though, the show was getting more exciting than ever. It was now airing on reruns in Canada, in the US, and in the newsletter, they list all of the countries that were renewing their licensing with Degrassi. One of the notes that stood out to me is that MTV would now be airing it in Spanish, which is so freaking cool. Czechoslovakia, Iceland, and Israel are also on that list, and they were eager for more Degrassi content, which caused Linda to react and say, "Geographical borders, different languages, and varying cultures can't change the fact that teenage problems and concerns are the same everywhere." I love that. And finally, crammed into the last column of this newsletter is a piece titled "The Future Towards 2001. This caught my eye because little did Linda Schuyler know that in 2001, she'd actually be rebooting the Degrassi franchise all over again with Degrassi: The Next Generation. That is the first year that it aired in Canada. And here she was now, back in 1992, brainstorming about what the future of Degrassi looked like. In this article, Linda notes that Degrassi Talks was an eye-opening experience for them and collecting data. They spoke to over 700 teenagers, they said, from a fisherman in Newfoundland, a female wheat farmer in Saskatchewan, and a victim of environmental disease in Vancouver. They noted that through their interviews and research hotlines, teenagers had reported 8 concerns about their future that stood out more than anything. And some of those included relationships, education, Canadian politics, money, and their own self-image. Linda said that this extensive collection of research is great value to us as we continue to develop new programs to present the voice of the youth. Stay tuned, she said. The next project they would work on was a TV film called X-Rated, and it later turned into the pilot episode of a show called Liberty Street, which featured some of the Degrassi cast as actors. But it had a very different vibe from Degrassi, as it focused on more young adult tenants in Toronto who shared an apartment together. This newsletter is just one of the many that came out from the Playing with Time production company, updating everyone on cast milestones, Degrassi awards, and encouraging the kids to seek funding for their own projects and education. It is so cool to see these snapshots of Degrassi's history just frozen in time. I never would have known that Anais Granofsky made a film with the Degrassi cast and received funding from Linda and Kit before she pursued her own degree in film and television. If you enjoyed hearing about this newsletter, leave a comment below because I have many more just like them in my Degrassi collection. So if you let me know, we can gladly break down another snapshot in time that helps us learn a little bit more about the history and impact of Degrassi. Thank you so much to my Patreon subscribers who make this bonus content possible. Thanks to you, we get to dive even deeper into the history of our favorite TV show. Love ya!